Court date is set for September 6th, where she will face charges that include conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud, theft of government property, and obstruction.
If convicted of all charges, the 69-year-old Congresswoman could face 357 years in prison and $4.8 million in fines. We'll be taking a look at the judge who will be presiding over Congresswoman Corrine Brown's case, and Vic Micolucci live in Washington, D.C., gaining reaction from her constituents. But first, we'll turn it over to Mary, who's standing by with what we know about the case. Mary?
Well, Joy and Kent, here's what we know so far about Brown's indictment. She pleaded not guilty to all 22 counts. And according to the indictment, Brown used money from her campaign to give to the charity One Door for education. It also says Brown deposited some of that money into her own personal bank account. Her chief of staff, Ronnie Simmons, is also facing charges related to One Door. He also pleaded not guilty. If convicted, he faces 355 years in prison and $4.7 million in fines. Cameras are not allowed in federal court, but News 4 Jax has these sketches, which offer a look into the courtroom. And these are sketches of Brown, Judge James Clint, and Ronnie Simmons. After entering her not guilty plea, she and Simmons were both released on a $50,000 unsecured bond, meaning they don't have to put up any money for that. Now, there are two others involved in the allegations. We already told you about 50-year-old Elias Ronnie Simmons, but Carla Wiley there is also involved. She's the president of One Door, the foundation tied to Congresswoman Brown. Neither Brown nor Simmons are allowed to contact Wiley outside the presence of their attorneys. Right now, Congresswoman Brown's trial date is set for September 6th. Joy.
Mary, thanks. Well, we were there when Congresswoman Brown left the federal courthouse today in Hemming Plaza. Channel 4's Chris Parento spoke with others there supporting Corrine Brown. Chris, what did her supporters have to say?
A lot of them say that they don't feel the Congresswoman did anything wrong. They say that she was acting in a way trying to help others. They were out here throughout the day, and as the Congresswoman walked out of federal court, they were handing out this paper that at the top says in bold lettering, indictment does not mean conviction. They want people to presume her innocence as this goes forward until the case is complete. That was their message as she walked out of court, their support for her. They wanted the congressman to know that they were by her side and that they will continue to be by her side. Two of Congresswoman Brown's biggest supporters were in the federal courthouse today. One of them was Councilman Reggie Brown. The other was her pastor, Bishop Rudolph McKissick Jr., who stood by her side as she left court this afternoon. Both of those men say that people should presume that she's innocent until she's proven guilty, just as the judge told her in court.
She has been a voice for the voiceless, a liberator for those who have been oppressed. Amen. She has fought tirelessly for those beyond race, creed, nationality, and religion. I'm saddened that we have come to this point. I stand here not only as her counselor, but as her intercessor. We stand by her. We pray with her. We pray for her.
It'd be to our detriment, the city of Jacksonville's detriment, if a conviction was to take place. I believe in the judicial system, so I believe that it's going to work in her favor. But we're going to have to just wait and see. But she's convinced that there's another story to be told, and I'm waiting to hear that.
Those supporters that were out here with their signs today say that they will be out here every time that the Congresswoman is in court. They say they want her to know that they are behind her and will continue to support her as this case moves forward. For now, we're live downtown. I'm Chris Parento, Channel 4, the local station.
Chris, thank you. Channel 4's Vic Micolucci now in Washington, D.C. to cover the latest political reaction to the Congresswoman's indictment. He is joining us live from Capitol Hill. Vic, how are other politicians reacting to Brown's indictment?
Well, we are hearing differing things. It's a mixed bag, really, but a lot of people coming and going from her office today. A lot of commotion, but her staffers would not say anything besides they had no comment. At one point, they even locked the door to keep the media out. But I did speak with a fellow member of the House of Representatives who says he's worked with her for many years.
I don't need to remind anybody that you're innocent until proven guilty.
Congressman Alan Grayson, whose district borders Congresswoman Corrine Brown's, warns people to let the justice system work.
Under these circumstances, we're all holding our breath and waiting to see what happens. ultimately some judge, some jury is going to decide after heard all the evidence, which I haven't heard a single word out of.
He says Brown, a fellow Democrat, has done a lot of good in the decades she's held office here in the House.
And I will tell you, from having served alongside of her for many years now, she is a good member of Congress. She serves the district very well. She takes her responsibilities very seriously. She works very hard, and she does a lot of good things for people in the community.
But we spoke with others on Capitol Hill who are very concerned about the allegations of fraud and corruption, especially with someone who has so much power.
They absolutely should know better, and they're surrounded by a staff that's supposed to be protecting them from making stupid mistakes.
So the notion that you could be donating or funding some kind of really admirable goal, and that money could be siphoned into just personal gain for a politician, you know, it's upsetting.
And other lawmakers and people here at the Capitol tell me that they are now following the case very closely. They did not feel comfortable commenting on camera because they say these are just allegations. She's innocent until she's proven guilty, but obviously some serious concerns given her state here with the House of Representatives and her power as a public official. They all said that they hope that she is treated equally, just like any of her constituents. Live on Capitol Hill, I'm Vic Micolucci, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Vic. And we're learning more about the judge who will preside over Corrine Brown's case, Judge Timothy Corrigan. Judge Corrigan's name may sound familiar. He was in the news just 2 months ago for surviving an assassination attempt. Channel 4's Francesca Amaker is joining us with more. Fran?
Well, Ken, Corrigan will be the permanent judge, but for now, temporarily, Judge James Clint was the judge. And if that name sounds familiar, he prosecuted and presided over one of the worst and largest JSO cases that led to corruption, prosecuting 4 officers. Now, let's take a look at a sketch that we got from inside the courtroom today. This is Clint in action. Now, this is a drawing of U.S. Magistrate Judge James Clint, who was presiding over the case today. He's the former prosecutor who is most known for prosecuting the worst Jacksonville Sheriff's Office corruption case ever, sending 3 JSO officers to jail for the robbery of a businessman. Now, the judge that will be presiding is Judge Timothy Corrigan, seen here back in June of 2013. He took the stand to testify about a shot fired into his home in June of 2013. A jury found Aaron Richardson guilty of attempted murder and 23 different charges. He was sentenced to 343 years in prison just 2 weeks ago. Now, Corrigan served as a magistrate judge of the United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida from 1996 to 2002, and President George W. Bush nominated Corrigan to the United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida in May of 2002. Now, again, today, Judge Clint did require that both Simmons and Corrine Brown appear at all proceedings, and the next one will be on July 26th, and that will be the status conference. For now, reporting live downtown, Francesca Amaker, Channel 4, the local station.
Do federal prosecutors have enough evidence to get a conviction in trial against Congresswoman Brown and her chief of staff?
Here with us now is our legal analyst, Rhonda Peoples-Waters. Rhonda, thanks for joining us. We talked a little bit in the newsroom together about what your expectations were as we waited for the indictment to come down. You were actually expecting a little bit more.
Yes, I will tell you that I know the prosecution would like to have more direct evidence as it relates to Congresswoman Brown's participation. They're going to have to prove that she knowingly participated in this scheme. And when you look at a lot of the information that's outlined in this indictment, many of it relates to Ronnie Simmons getting the money from one door and then placing it into Congresswoman Brown's account. But most of the transactions really are hands-off from Congresswoman Brown.
There are examples highlighted as we look through the indictment here of the evidence that the federal prosecutors say they have against these 2, but you've raised some concerns about the accusations. For instance, plane tickets purchased. That's good on the prosecution side or the defense side?
Well, certainly I expect that Congresswoman Brown is going to say that these plane tickets that were purchased on her behalf and Ronnie Simmons' behalf were expenditures as it related to the charitable organization. And so I expect that those will be her defense to explain why it wasn't a scheme to defraud.
So where's the real problem for her when it comes to these other things like repair work done on personal vehicles, right?
Absolutely. When you're talking about the repair work for her personal vehicle that's coming out of a charitable contribution, that's an issue. And certainly the contributions and deposits, large cash amounts going directly to her bank account, that is something that she will certainly have to offer an explanation for.
And another accusation involves charitable donations that Brown made, that she says she made.
Right, and the indictment says that she inflated some income or donations that she made to churches, as well as had them to create letters saying that she contributed a certain amount when it truly wasn't that amount. And those are issues that will have to be really explored.
Thank you, Rhonda Peoples-Waters, giving us some expert analysis here. And as we go forward, here's what we know so far. Congresswoman Corrine Brown pleading not guilty to 22 federal charges today. If convicted on all those charges, she faces 357 years in prison, up to $4.8 million in fines. She is out tonight of custody on a $50,000 bond. She's facing these charges because of a connection to a questionable charity, One Door for Education. The president of that organization pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud back in March of this year.
Our coverage of the Congresswoman's indictment is not over yet. For everything you need to know, including a copy of that indictment against Brown and videos of her arrival in court today, it's all there on our website, news4jax.com. Just click on this story under Top Stories.